This is the Sten gun. Specifically, it's the Mark II. It is, I think, the missing piece of the puzzle when discussing gun rights issues in the UK, and I will get back to this later on. As a libertarian, I am a staunch advocate for gun rights. I am specifically a fan of the United States' Second Amendment to the Constitution. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is a phenomenal line and succinctly provides the exact limitations of the government and the perfect reason for such a limitation. Shall not be infringed, as in, the government cannot prevent you in any way from owning or operating a firearm, and the reason being that this right is necessary for the security of a free state. An armed society is a polite society, a free society. There are many arguments from people on the left and from authoritarians in general that attempt to provide justification for the infringement of this right and assert that the common man ought not to be permitted to bear arms. In my experience, all of these arguments are flawed, nonsensical, or otherwise lacking, and have not in any way convinced me. I am, however, happy to provide my own justification for my support, and to explain why I believe that the UK should adopt the same position, that it is the right of any free man to own and bear firearms. Firstly, there is the libertarian moral argument that it is any person's right to defend themselves in any way they see fit. Guns do not harm anyone on their own. They require a specific motivation and action to do any damage. Someone who owns a firearm, stores and uses it safely, and commits no crimes using it, is in no way harming anyone else by simply owning it. And someone who uses a firearm for illicit, illegal, and immoral purposes does so despite those objections, and will do so regardless of the illegality of ownership. When guns are legal, anyone can have them, but when guns are illegal, only criminals will. This is a very simple concept, but one which people seem to struggle to understand. A criminal doesn't care that guns are illegal. Likewise, a law-abiding citizen who owns a legal firearm does not commit a crime with it. However, if guns are outlawed, a criminal can still obtain one, illegally, and then victimize the law-abiding citizen who now cannot defend themselves or their property on a level playing field. They are at a disadvantage. The next argument would be that having access to firearms allows one to protect oneself and one's community from tyrannical government. Tyrannical governments always, without fail, disarm the populace they wish to subjugate before doing so. The Nazis disarmed the Jews, the Communists disarmed everyone, Venezuela, North Korea, etc., etc. Every example of a terrifying authoritarian government involves the government first denying the citizens the right to bear arms because, well, what are they going to do about it? If you don't have a gun and the government knocks on your door and tells you that you're going to the Gulag, what can you really do to oppose them? If the Jews and the Gypsies and the Jehovah's Witnesses and whatnot all had machine guns, do you think the Nazis would have been capable of rounding them up and enslaving them and massacring them so swiftly and easily? Any additional opposition from those groups that the Nazis oppressed would have been a positive development and may have spared many lives. But it's hard to stop the stormtroopers when you can't fight back. Less murderously, but no less authoritarianly, if that's a word, here in the UK, since the banning and restricting of guns in many ways, we have effectively lost many rights which we have previously taken for granted. Freedom of speech and association, of assembly and conscience and movement. The lockdowns which plagued our country for over a year have had tremendous negative effects and have set a dangerous precedent, whereby the government not only feels justified in arbitrarily restricting its people, but is now safe in the knowledge that if it does so, when it does so, it will face little to no opposition and certainly no armed opposition. Here, therefore, comes my final argument, and we return to the Sten gun. This argument is one of precedent, something previously missing from our collective well with regards gun rights in the UK. You see, the Sten is an English weapon, a submachine gun designed and primarily built in the UK during the Second World War, a gun for killing Nazis and opposing tyrants, for fighting wars and defeating fascists, but more importantly, a gun for defending England. Churchill wanted a weapon with which we could defend our island nation against the ongoing Nazi threat. We had lost a large stockpile of weaponry in the flight from Dunkirk, and we needed a replacement. We were purchasing the American Tommy gun, but it wasn't enough. What we needed was a gun we could make ourselves. Our answer was the Sten. Widely regarded as hideous and impractical, it nonetheless was instrumental in our overall ultimate victory. We made millions of them, and they were used throughout the UK and the Commonwealth by civilians and soldiers alike. There are some very good reasons for this. Number one, it was cheap. Cost about £11 to produce, far, far cheaper than the Tommy gun. 2, it was simple, with very few parts comparatively and needing only basic manufacturing knowledge and skills. 3, it could be made using scrap and bric-a-brac. It used the same spring from a mattress. The result of these factors was that relatively few people, potentially even one Englishman in a shed, could produce the Sten with relative ease. We had at one point made the process so simple and so easy that it took approximately 5 man-hours to produce the finished submachine gun. What does this all mean? This gun was meant to be capable of being built, being stored, being maintained, and being utilized by decentralized powers, by small groups and individuals. In fact, it was very popular with resistance fighters and guerrilla groups for this exact reason. It could be made by anyone, and used by anyone, because Britain needed to know that anyone and everyone would be capable of defending their home from violent invasion by our enemies. When we needed our soldiers out of Dunkirk, the common man helped bring them home. On civilian ships, on fishing trawlers and hobby boats, we fought together, everyone, soldier or not, to protect our men and our home. The Sten, therefore, is the natural extension of that. It is the right, and indeed the responsibility of every free Englishman to protect our home. I fear that we have forgotten that.